Two and a high chair for smoking. Chapter 5. The Home Stretch. Part 1. The worst of winter passed. The head office decided to extend the 2-for-1 coupon promotion in the local newspaper to keep customers coming in until business picked up in the spring. I had no problem with that. By Valentine's Day, I had $2,000 in the bank. They could keep offering those coupons until the day I left, and I wouldn't complain. During split shifts, I started going to a large bookstore near the mall. Customers were allowed to take books off the shelf, buy a coffee at the Starbucks in the back of the store, and sit down to read in one of the plush chairs. Management thought this would encourage sales. They were wrong, of course, but it was a great place to go when I had a break. It got me out of the mall. One afternoon, a barista handed me a coffee and told me it was on the house. I was confused. Was this Customer Appreciation Day or something? No, he said. There was a girl that worked in the store that liked me. The coffee was from her. I looked around. Who was the mystery girl? She's not here today, he laughed. But if you come in the evening this week, she'll probably be here. My curiosity was piqued. I went back a few days later. The staff walked around helping customers, but no one paid any attention to me. How should I play this? I bought a coffee and sat down with a book. No one approached me. Perhaps she was not working that night? Had I missed her shift? I thought the free coffee had been a cool idea, a fun twist on the idea of buying someone a drink at a bar. I got up to leave. As I approached the exit, a girl with short hair and large brown eyes came around the corner. I'm the one who bought you the coffee, she laughed nervously, covering her mouth. We talked for a minute and exchanged phone numbers. I had never dated a secret admirer before. This was going to be interesting. Part 2. Her name was Jean, and she liked to send me colorful notes and cards in the mail. She told me that she had trouble admitting when she was wrong or saying what she wanted to say face to face. Instead, she wrote letters. Whenever we had a disagreement, which was often, an envelope would arrive in the mail a few days later. Usually it was perfumed or accompanied by a few sweets. We made mixtapes for each other. I scoured my CD collection for songs that she might like, and painstakingly sequenced them so that the final song on each side of the cassette finished a few seconds before the tape reached the end of its roll. She did the same for me. We liked some of the same bands, but not many. She was a women's studies major, and I was too naive to realize that meant run. Don't walk, but run away from this girl. She flirted with the idea that she was bisexual, and she thought that the woman who shot Andy Warhol was cool. The first time I met her parents, something felt off. Her dad was tall, wore glasses, and had thinning hair. He looked slightly bookish. It was like looking into a mirror 20 years in the future. Jean was the spitting image of her mother, who seemed to nag her husband quite a bit. It wasn't a good sign. We fooled around in the spare room and the basement while her parents watched TV upstairs. She indulged in the fantasy that she was really slumming it by dating a boy from the north side of town. She was from the south side and thought herself sophisticated. Posh was a word that she bandied around. Part 3. Mondays were 80s night at some club downtown. Jean and her friends went every week, religiously. After we became an official couple, she insisted I join them. It was a sign of approval, she said. I want my friends to know you. And as the weather warmed up, we had fights and disagreements almost every time we met. I started to regret getting together with her. Whatever we had quarreled about on the weekend, however, The next night, we put on our best faces and went downtown with her friends to dance to 80s synth pop. It was a nightmare. Near the end of May, we had a big argument about what shirt she wanted me to wear. She enjoyed taking me shopping, visiting second-hand shops and dressing me up in vintage style. To her credit, she picked out better clothes than I would have. But I didn't like being treated like a dress-up doll. I could choose my own shoes, thank you very much. We had a brief pregnancy scare as well, although I suspected it was more scare than pregnancy. She liked drama. After yet another fight, she asked me, "Are you going to break up with me if it turns out I'm not pregnant?" The next 80s night turned out to be our last. We went downtown in 2 cars. Bill drove one. He was a balding English lit grad who worked at the bookstore. In the passenger seat was Sarah, his mousy girlfriend. Whenever the 4 of us were together, their relaxed enjoyment of each other's company was a painful contrast to Jean and me. Pete and Jennifer, who both worked at Starbucks, came in another car. When we arrived, the upbeat 80s pop music was a welcome distraction from the feeling that we were on the verge of breaking up. I was wearing the shirt that she had picked out, as well as the shoes that she had cooed over a month before. The 6 of us took a table near the dance floor. I excused myself and went to get a drink. My first beer quickly turned into a second and third bottle. We danced for a while, all 6 of us, then returned to the table. The music blaring from the speakers could not drown out the awkward silence. The club was crowded, but I felt incredibly lonely. Being with Jean made it even worse. I don't want to be with you, I thought. On the heels of that, what am I even doing here? I stood up. Maybe it was the beer, or perhaps the sense of inevitability. This is where the story ends, I thought to myself. I may as well enjoy myself. So I walked across the dance floor to the stage, climbed up, and joined the party there. A song came on. The music was loud and filled my head. I could feel the stage vibrate beneath my feet. I hated Jean. I hated this place. But I liked this song. I started dancing faster, getting into the words and the music, and the words "so lonely, so lonely, so lonely" rang in my ears. A girl wearing funky checkered pants and a belly shirt noticed me and came over to dance. I knew Jean and her friends were probably watching, and she would be pissed. I tried half-heartedly to dance away from the girl, but she followed me. "Here Comes Your Man" came on next. Jean didn't like that song. She didn't like the Pixies either. How could anyone not like the Pixies? The girl hooked her fingers into 2 of my belt loops and pulled me toward her. I could feel Jean's eyes on me. Shit. I danced to the other side of the stage. A few minutes later, another song started. The girl approached me a 3rd time. Did she like guys who played hard to get? Was it my shoes? I didn't know. She grabbed my shirt and pulled me close. I could feel her skin and smell her perfume. I should have gone for it. In an alternate timeline, I could have. The night might have ended quite differently. Instead, I pushed the girl away a final time and went to the bathroom. I'd been dancing for a while and was beginning to sweat. I looked at a condom advertisement above the urinal as I relieved myself. Bill came in. He told me that Jean was really upset. We went back to the table. Jean was sobbing hysterically, accusing me of betraying her. She was so upset, she informed everyone in a shrill voice, that she had just thrown up in the bathroom. How, she cried, could I do that to her, in her condition? She ran out of the club in tears. I followed her, not knowing what else to do. We ran down a back street, the asphalt still damp from that day's rain. Our footfalls echoed in the alley. I twisted my ankle and hobbled after her. It felt like we were playing out a scene in a movie. This was dumb. What was I doing? This kind of drama should be reserved for someone I actually cared about losing. I had already made up my mind. We went home in separate cars. Part 4. I called Jean from the staff room payphone. It was worth a quarter. I had just arrived for a morning shift. She answered the phone, thankfully. I told her we had to meet. We hadn't spoken for 2 weeks. She had sent me a card in the mail expressing hope that we could work things out, but there was no warmth coming through the phone's receiver. The conversation was terse. I waited for Jean after work, an uncomfortable knot in my stomach. How should I do this? Mel sat across from me in the staff room, smoking a cigarette. She didn't say anything, but she knew. Everyone knew. There were no secrets at work. Amy came into the staff room. Steve, she's waiting at the front. We walked down the stairs together and left the mall. Awkward small talk. She had parked her mother's minivan not far from the entrance. We got in and she drove to a lake not far away. I dropped the bomb as we walked along a path by the water. You're breaking up with me? I nodded. I knew it. Her lips curled in hurt and disgust. Well, I guess I won't be coming back here. You've ruined this place for me now. We stopped talking for a moment and looked around. Everything was beautiful in the late afternoon sun. The place seemed better suited for a romantic date than a breakup. I won't be able to come back here without remembering this. She looked down for a moment and then back at me. We started walking again. The mood was grim. It was going to be a long walk home. I wondered where the closest bus stop might be. We went back to the minivan and sat inside. She started to talk, but then tears came. Not knowing what else to do, I held her, and we started kissing. For some reason, we decided to go to her parents' house, neither of us saying anything on the way. Later on, I called a taxi. She asked me at the back door if I would think about it one more time. I shook my head and walked up the driveway. Awkward. So awkward. The taxi driver chatted with me on the way home. He sensed something had happened and gave me a sympathetic smile when I paid the fare. Have a good night, sir. Just remember, you can't win them all. I stood in my parents' driveway and watched the taillights disappear into the night. Part 5. These people were all the same. That's what I thought as they came up from the food court. They were different, of course, but that didn't mean they weren't indistinguishable. Like bits of meat and vegetables floating in a stew. They were various shapes and sizes, different shades and hues, but it was pointless to differentiate them. A spoonful of stew was a spoonful of stew, whatever it contained. Most shifts were like that. One spoonful might have more meat, or bigger chunks, or more greens than another, but in the grand bowl of things, each spoon tasted pretty much the same as the one before it. But not all. There were singularities, oddities that floated to the top and insisted on recognition. Richard Price was like that. He was a cunt. We didn't get many of them. Kelly, too. If for no other reason than that he was impenetrably innocuous, there must be something more to him. We were sure of it. Alex DuPont? He would stand out anywhere in that bomber jacket and leopard print scarf. And then there was old 41. I could never remember his name. Every week or two, he would come up the stairs, complain good-naturedly about the lack of an elevator, and ask, "Is table 41 open?" Most customers wanted to sit along the rail, but he liked to sit at a little round two-seater upstairs. "It gives me the best view of all the nice young ladies in the food court," he said with a chuckle. For some reason, that never came off as creepy. He was just a kind, grandfatherly type that liked to come in by himself, chat with the waitresses, and watch the world pass by. One day, he asked me about the table number. It's 41, I said. It felt weird saying it to a customer, like I was letting him in on a secret code. 41, eh? Table 41. I see. After that, he always asked for it. "I'll wait. It's got the best view of all the pretty girls in the mall," he smiled. Late in the summer, a middle-aged woman came into the restaurant and asked to talk with the manager. The boss's wife said that she would take a message. The woman handed her an envelope and explained that old 41 was her father. He had died recently, but before he passed, he had written a card and enclosed a picture of himself sitting in a chair in his backyard, and told his daughter to give it to the boss. The restaurant had always brightened his day, she said. The boss's wife opened the envelope, saw the picture, and started crying almost immediately. The boss was moved too. The card and picture were both framed and hung in the back pass bar outside the boss's office. As far as I know, they were still there until the day that the restaurant closed. Not everyone, I realized, was the same. Part 6. The summer was hot, the hottest on record. The mall's air conditioning, such as it was not designed for such temperatures. "Don't you have air conditioning up here?" people asked when they arrived at the top of the stairs, beads of sweat on their foreheads. The mall's air conditioning system isn't very good, I agreed. And hot air rises, you dumbasses, I thought. Did you think it would be cooler up here than down there? I was sweltering too. We all were. A few customers came up, fanned themselves, and then left. It was too hot to eat. The mall felt like an oven. We were baking. One afternoon, everyone suddenly heard a loud crack. It seemed to have come from one of the large glass windows high above the food court. Everyone looked up in alarm. Had a bird hit it? Had the heat from the sun somehow weakened the frame? The food court emptied out with surprising speed, a minor stampede in the languid mid-afternoon heat. Would one of the windows come loose and come crashing down, shattering on the floor and sprinkling shards of glass in every hot dog, hamburger, and stir-fry in the food court? Some forward-thinking people picked up their trays and took them with them. Minutes passed, and nothing happened. Slowly, people came back, trays and all, and continued where they had left off. A sauna-like atmosphere prevailed. Some people put their heads down on the table and took a nap. One afternoon that summer, a busy Saturday if I recall, I looked over the rail and noticed two paramedics in the food court. An old man was on the floor, surrounded by a small crowd of onlookers. The years of fast food had finally overtaken him. You have to be faster than the food, I thought. It looked like the sludge had won the race in the end. What a way to go. Breathing your last on the grimy floor of the food court, surrounded by people taking a moment away from ingesting their own processed slop to watch you pass from this world. They would, no doubt, go back to the trough after the paramedics had done all they could. 4 and a high chair, please. For non-smoking. 2 geriatrics, 2 yuppies, and a stroller. Grandparents, parents, and the next generation. and the hope for the future. I checked the gazebo. It was empty. A lot of customers didn't like sitting there because the two halves were too close together. People at the other table could hear your conversation. It felt like you were sharing a table with strangers. You were almost facing them. It was awkward. For big families, though, the gazebo was a great way to control the kids. I would push the two tables together to form a semicircle facing the rail, and have a parent on each end, corralling the children in the middle. It was hard for Mom and Dad to have a conversation across the din that their offspring were making in the middle, but most of these couples looked like they had run out of things to say to each other long ago. As I led the family along the rail, I could see the rats in the food court. Some scurried in, others scurried out. Others remained motionless, as if impaled to their seats. The rats watched. They watched everything. Despite the heat of the summer, they didn't shed their coats or wear shorts. There was long pants all year round. One subspecies of mole rat, the homie, traveled in packs. Although non-threatening when alone, they adopted predatory characteristics when they roamed the mall in greater numbers. Homies were instantly identifiable by their shiny sports team jackets and matching baseball caps. Sometimes these rats would surround a kid and strong-arm him into giving up his jacket. They found it empowering to overpower the weak. As the years passed, their numbers dwindled, the last few packs driven to extinction by increasingly hot summers. They were replaced by other, younger rats, a new breed better adapted to changing climate conditions. Part 7. "Oh, hi, Alex. One for non-smoking?" He nodded, and I picked up a menu. There were 2 regular tables open along the rail, but I wanted to keep them open for the big families that would surely come up during lunch. Table 15, the 2-seater opposite the gazebo, was open. Bingo. My mind was on money. Just call me Sticky Fingers Steve. Each week I made a goal. The amount varied depending on how many shifts I worked, how many customers came in, and how nervous I felt at the time. The previous Saturday, I had nearly shit myself. In the middle of a lunch rush, a couple had come up to pay. They didn't have a coupon. As soon as they turned to leave, I quickly promoed a meal. Automatically, a new bill came up from the printer. I started to raise my hand, ready to tear it and trash it, but at that moment, the boss's wife came up to check the waiting list. Where the hell had she just come from? I had checked. I always checked. I was caught. The next few seconds passed in slow motion. She looked at me, and then the bill, still coming out of the printer. The couple were already on their way downstairs. I couldn't move or say a word. What was that look on her face? Had she put it together? My breath stuck in my throat. "Table 27 will be set in a minute," she said, at last. I nodded. "Okay." My heart pounded in my chest. "Barry, for 2 in smoking?" She crossed out the name on the list and took the menus in hand. Her hand... Wait, hold on. There was a hand on my butt. I could feel fingers, and they pulled me out of the memory. Alex? What the hell? What was going on? And then they were gone. We reached table 15, and I put the menu down on the table. "Fran will be with you in just a minute," I said. Was that my voice? I was so stunned I didn't know what to do. For the rest of the shift, I was in a state of disbelief. What had just happened? Was I sure it had happened? I couldn't decide if I wanted to tell Lori or the others. The boss? I didn't want to bring him into it. I didn't know how to feel. I wasn't angry, but it occurred to me I should be. This was sexual harassment. I should be furious. I should be. That would make sense. But I wasn't. Instead, I just felt sorry for him. I wished he hadn't done it. I wanted to forget about it. I liked joking around with him. Everyone did. He was one of our favorite regulars. Why did he have to go and do that? Did he think I was gay? Even if he did, touching another guy's ass was no way of asking, "You too?" That was going too far. The following week, he came in again. I acted normally when I saw him, but felt resentful and inconvenienced. Because of you, I have to bring this up, I thought to myself. Why did you burden me with this? I took him to an empty table along the rail. Nothing happened, en route. After he sat down, I put one hand on either side of the table and looked at him in the eye. God, I felt so uncomfortable. Alex, what you did last time was unacceptable. He looked at me, surprised. What? I think you're a nice guy, Alex. We all like you around here. But listen to me. Hands off. I walked away and avoided looking at him or even passing his table the rest of the time that he was there. He ate, paid, and left without a word. Alex didn't come back again for months. I felt a bit guilty for making an issue of it, which made no sense. I was the victim, wasn't I? But I didn't feel violated, just confused and uncomfortable. I couldn't articulate it. I had no frame of reference for the experience. When he finally did come back, no one said anything. By then, all the servers knew. Nothing stayed a secret in the restaurant for long. Life went on, and we pretended as if nothing had happened. Part 8. Coffee, paper, yeah. The poster outside the 7-Eleven showed a steaming cup of Java next to a folded newspaper. At the bottom were those 3 words. How are we supposed to read that? What was the ad trying to say? Was it trying to reach out and identify with the average Joe and Jane punch clock, on their way to a job more fulfilling than the one that the sad schmuck behind the counter had? Let's see, what have I got? Coffee? Yep, can't start the day without that. Paper? Gotta keep up on the news. And, I guess that's it. Coffee, paper, yeah. Yeah. There would come a moment when the clerk, dressed in a uniform so unattractive that it caused clinical depression, looked up through graveyard shift heavy eyes and confirmed their intended purchase. Coffee and paper? Yeah! Was that it? Was that the message? Oh, the mystery of it all. But there was no mystery with Al. He was a clerk, a full-timer at 7-Eleven. He hated his job and despised the customers. He didn't seem to mind Sean and me, though, usually post-smoke-up when we stopped in to buy some munchies. Al was perpetually unhappy. The look on his face left no doubt he wanted to get out of that shithole, but doubted he could. He would see us when we came in, acknowledge us with a nod, and then go back to hating his life. I imagined Sean and I coming in one night and seeing him standing on the counter, his old sneakers, scuffed and worn, balanced on the glass counter that displayed scratch-and-win lottery tickets, his ill-fitting black pants, as faded as the hope in his soul, would only be visible below the knees, shielded by the racks of cigarettes above the counter. "I'll be with you guys in a second. Just getting a noose ready here." Yeah, the day would come when Al would no longer be with us. He looked the type. I ran into him after work one night. We were both on our way home. He asked if I wanted to hang out and smoke a joint at his place. I said sure. He lived in a basement suite nearby. The house belonged to his best friend's parents. I've known Shane since 2nd grade, he said, lighting a joint. He's like my brother. For some reason, he pronounced it brudder, and that bugged the shit out of me. Want to listen to some music? Sure. I looked around. No CDs anywhere. Where do you keep the tunes? I keep all my music on here now. He turned on his desktop computer. You don't have any CDs? Not anymore. They're a ripoff, man. $20 for 10 songs? Then the CD gets scratched and skips all the time? What are you gonna do, go out and buy another one? He had a point, I guess. But I liked collecting music, seeing the stacks of CDs in my room get higher and higher over time. You can get some pretty good deals at pawn shops and used CD places, though. Old stuff, too. You can get Japanese imports with bonus tracks, all kinds of stuff you'll never find on the internet. More and more songs are uploaded every day, dude. Yeah, but if you buy a CD, you get the lyrics, too. Some discs have cool liner notes. You don't just get the music. You can keep your liner notes, man, said Al, laughing. I've got this program on my computer now. It can download songs right from the internet. It's free. I've got hundreds of songs. Everything I used to have. It's CD quality. Listen to this. He played a song and I listened. It sounded good. Maybe not as good as a CD, but still pretty good. Free, too. A world of music for the taking. All he needed was his computer and an internet connection. Shit, I still made mixtapes and walked around with my Walkman. We smoked another joint and listened to another song or two. The conversation tapered off quickly. There wasn't much for us to talk about. I decided to make an excuse and leave. Al was fun to chat with for a few minutes, but like coffee paper, yeah, the entertainment value was limited.